We need to talk about Travis Hunter. Drafted second overall in the 2025 NFL Draft, Travis Hunter's rookie season left quite a bit to be desired for those of us that were hoping for significant fantasy football output in his first year. What does the combination of his prospect profile entering the league, along with his performance in his rookie season, say about what we can expect from Travis Hunter in fantasy football going forward? We're going to dive into the data right now in this video. Welcome back to Cups Analytics. Let's get right into it. All right, so before diving into a recap of Travis Hunter's first year in the NFL, I wanted to take a step back and take a look at his prospect profile entering the league back in 2025. And there's obviously a lot of numbers here, but the one that's most important is the cup score column. That is my personal prospect modeling score that I created during my data science master's program. It takes into account collegiate production, size and athleticism, and draft capital. And using these features, it's able to do a pretty good job of predicting NFL fantasy points per game. And you can see with a cup score of 87, that put Travis Hunter in a pretty solid group of comps entering the league. Only 7 of Travis Hunter's closest comps came in with a production score lower than his 70.36. But Hunter's cup score was primarily driven by the fact that he was drafted second overall, which was the highest since any wide receiver since Calvin Johnson in 2007. And obviously there's some question marks around, would he have been drafted that high if he was just a wide receiver? How much did the two-way aspect of his profile play into that draft capital? So that was always a question entering the league for Travis Hunter from a fantasy football perspective. And it made it a little bit harder to evaluate his talent, at least for me on the data side. But since there wasn't really one right answer or any previous players to really go off of with this type of profile, I just treated him like a normal wide receiver, at least from the data analytics front. And obviously my model thought pretty highly of him coming in with an 87 cup score. You can see of his 20 closest comps, 10 of them averaged over 12 fantasy points per game throughout their careers in the NFL. So he was definitely in good company entering the league. And he graded out as my wide receiver 2 in the 2025 class, only behind Tedero McMillan. So obviously being a wide receiver drafted second overall, first one since 2007, the expectations are going to be pretty high for a guy like Travis Hunter coming into the league. And those expectations were definitely felt by the fantasy football community. So let's take a look at how he did in his rookie recap. So you can see here, Travis Hunter played 7 games in his first season in the NFL. In those 7 games, he had 298 receiving yards. Since his season was significantly shorter due to injury, I'm going to look at everything on a per game basis rather than total stats. So as you can see, he had 42.6 receiving yards per game, which was 4th in the class. He had 4 receptions per game, which was 1st in the class. He came in 3rd in the class in fantasy points per game with 9.11. He was 7th in the class in yards per out run with 1.32. And 4th in the class in targets per out run with 0.19. So obviously these numbers are a bit of a mixed bag for a guy like Travis Hunter being drafted second overall, with lofty expectations of coming in and immediately being a difference maker in that Jacksonville passing offense. So all this considered, what do Travis Hunter's year 2 statistical comps look like? And what can we expect from him in 2026 and throughout his career from a fantasy football perspective? So to answer that question, we're going to take a look at his year 2 comps right here. And as you can see, these are the 20 closest comparable players to Travis Hunter based on his rookie season and his prospect profile. These players are sorted by similarity, so the top row is the most similar player. And the stats I took into account when determining these year 2 statistical comps were the cup score, which is, like I said earlier, my personal prospect score. Obviously still important to take into account with these players having such a small sample size in the NFL, especially a guy like Travis Hunter who only played 7 games in his rookie season. We also have year 1 fantasy points per game. Fantasy points per game tends to be one of the more predictive things on a year-over-year basis. We also have year 1 first down market share. So what % of first downs for your team were you responsible for? So this tells us that Travis Hunter was responsible for around 9% of the Jacksonville total first downs in games that he played. We also have year 1 air yards per game. So the total number of yards that basically came your way during a game, whether that ball was caught or not caught. And finally, we have year 1 yards after the catch per game. So how effective were you at generating extra yardage with your legs after catching the football? And finally, the last 3 columns are just the total number of top 5, top top 12 and top 24 fantasy point per game finishes across each of these players' careers. And as you can see from the chart here, the comps that Travis Hunter has going into year 2 definitely took a hit from the list we saw at the beginning of this video that he had before he played his rookie season. So of Hunter's 20 closest comps, 12 out of 20 or 60% hit at least one top 24 fantasy point per game finish across their careers. 6 out of 20 or 30% had at least one wide receiver 1 finish or top 12, and only 2 out of 20 hit at least one top 5 finish throughout their careers. And for those of you guys that have been around the fantasy industry for long enough, you'll know that typically when a player gets the Davante Adams comp after their rookie season, that's usually not a good sign because Davante Adams is the outlier of all outliers. He was a solid prospect entering the NFL, but did absolutely nothing his rookie year. And he's one of the very few guys that was able to turn it around in the future and become a prolific wide receiver at the NFL level. So now that we've seen how the names and careers went for these closest 20 comps for Travis Hunter after his rookie season, let's take a look at how their second seasons went specifically so we can kind of get an idea of the range of outcomes of what we could expect from Travis Hunter specifically in 2026. So you can see here, this is a 5-number summary for Travis Hunter specifically for his second season based on the fantasy point per game output of his 20 closest comps in their second seasons. So what this tells me is the range on Travis Hunter's outcomes in year 2 is not super inspiring of a very high ceiling or even much of a valuable median outcome. So long story short, what this range of data for Travis Hunter's year 2 comps is telling me is that the odds are not really in his favor to be a super productive wide receiver in his second season. And obviously this data doesn't even take into account the cornerback versus wide receiver snap share, what side of the ball he's going to play more on next year. It obviously doesn't take into account any of that. This is just pure wide receiver analytics based on what he did at the wide receiver position in his first year. That alone tells us that there was a lot left to be desired. And I think data aside, the outlook for Travis Hunter gets even more murky considering how the passing offense thrived down the stretch last year with Parker Washington emerging, Jacoby Myers arriving and becoming a dominant offensive weapon on that team as well. We also still have BTJ there, even though he took a step back in year 2. And also Brenton Strange at the tight end position is no slouch either. So it's obviously a very crowded receiving core with a lot of mouths to feed. But all that being said, I still think it's really hard to judge Travis Hunter based on the data, just because he really is like a unicorn of a prospect in terms of playing both sides of the ball. He's obviously just a very good football player all around. I mean, you have to be in order to go to the NFL and play both ways. So I really do think he is talented, but there's so many things that are working against him at this point, at least from a fantasy football perspective. Now, all that being said, I still think Travis Hunter is one of the best buys in fantasy football, specifically Dynasty right now. And I'll tell you why. Even with all of the negative things that I brought up this video, we can't disregard the fact that Travis Hunter had an 87 cup score entering the NFL. Obviously, the draft capital might be a little suspect given the two-way player thing and not knowing where he would have gone as a pure wide receiver. And for all the negative things that I brought up in this video about his outlook in year 2, I think the fantasy community is punishing him perhaps a bit too much in terms of his value. Looking at Dynasty's startup ADP over the past couple months on Dynasty Data Lab, we can see this is where Travis Hunter is currently going in startups. He's going off the board as the wide receiver 37. I mean, you have Parker Washington going ahead of him by 2 picks, which to me just feels like the ultimate recency bias. Parker Washington, as much as I liked him as a prospect, he wasn't highly drafted and has multiple years of irrelevance in the NFL. I'm personally taking Travis Hunter over Washington. I'm taking him over Wan'Dale Robinson. Ricky Pearsall up at wide receiver 27 still makes 0 sense to me. I can't understand that one at all. Also seeing running backs like Jalen Warren and Kyle Monungai going ahead of Travis Hunter feels insane. So yeah, all that to say, obviously Travis Hunter is a little bit of a black box. He's probably the most black box of any prospect that we're going to review from 2025. So I'll leave that data to you to do what you want with it. But yeah, that's all I have on Travis Hunter for you guys. Let me know what you think. Obviously, he's a pretty confusing prospect, so I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments. Let me know what you're expecting from him in 2026. Do you think he's going to emerge as one of the main receivers in the Jacksonville offense, or do you think he's going to be relegated to mainly cornerback? Whatever happens, it'll definitely be interesting to see. But make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Check out the other 2025 year 2 comp and rookie breakdown videos that I'm doing. I'm making one for every prospect from the 25 class that I think is worth talking about. And also keep an eye out for some 2026 rookie content coming soon as well. That's all I got for you guys in this video. Make sure you're subscribed and drop a like, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.